You're with Kir Kurtop, and these are 100 excavations that accidentally discovered entire underground civilizations. Ruins of the most ancient civilization underwater. In the early 2000s, a team of researchers led by the Canadian company Advanced Digital Communications made a sensational discovery off the coast of Cuba. At a depth of about 600 to 750 meters on the ocean floor, strange structures resembling stone buildings were discovered. These structures looked like organized rows of giant stone blocks, some of which had a regular rectangular shape and resembled massive walls or pyramid-like structures. The initial results of underwater research conducted using modern sonar led to the hypothesis of the possible existence of a sunken city that could have been swallowed by the ocean tens of thousands of years ago. According to some estimates, the age of these ruins may exceed 50,000 years, which is significantly older than the earliest known civilizations, such as Sumer and ancient Egypt. This makes the possible discovery even more intriguing, as it suggests the existence of ancient and possibly highly developed cultures about which science currently knows nothing. Some scientists believe that these ruins may represent the remains of an ancient city built before the last ice age, when the sea level was significantly lower. There is a suggestion that this area may have been inhabited by ancient peoples who were later forced to leave their homes due to the rising sea level. This is supported by proponents of the theory about the existence of ancient sunken continents, such as Atlantis, described in the works of Plato. Some geologists suggest that these formations may be the result of natural geological processes, such as erosion, earthquakes, and other movements of the Earth's crust. Further research and analysis of the underwater ruins off the coast of Cuba require significant resources and time. Let's hope that the authorities will find the means to study these ancient ruins. The underground fortress of Iran. Imagine an ordinary sunny day in 2006. A resident of the small Iranian town of Nushabad decided to dig a well in his backyard, but after another blow with his pickaxe, the ground literally disappeared from under his feet. The man didn't fall into water, but into a bottomless black void that concealed a secret buried under the sands for 1,500 years. This is how the city of Uyi was accidentally discovered, an incredible underground metropolis that is now considered one of the most complex fortification structures of antiquity. The archaeologists who arrived at the site were stunned by its scale. This was not just a system of cellars or shelters. It was a full-fledged mirror city that went 3 full levels deep underground. The first level begins at a depth of 4 meters, and the lowest one goes almost 18 meters underground. All of this was carved out by hand in solid rock, back in the time of the Sasanian dynasty. Why did the ancient Persians need to build an entire civilization underground? The answer lies in the history of constant wars. For centuries, this region was plagued by raids from Mongols, Arabs, and other nomads. The inhabitants of Nushabad found a brilliant way to protect themselves. Instead of building high walls, they simply disappeared. When the dust from the hooves of enemy cavalry appeared on the horizon, the entire population of the city went underground. The entrances to Uyi were disguised as wells, hidden in dense thickets, or even inside ordinary residential houses. Enemies could camp for weeks right above the heads of thousands of people without even suspecting their existence. The technical design of Uyi baffles modern engineers. How could thousands of people stay in an enclosed space for weeks without suffocating? The secret was in a unique ventilation system. The ancient builders carved vertical shafts that connected all 3 levels to the surface. Due to the difference in temperature and pressure, the air inside constantly circulated, staying fresh even on the lowest level. But if the enemy still managed to find the entrance, Nushabad would turn into a deadly trap. The corridors here were intentionally made so narrow and low that it was impossible to stand up straight or turn around with a sword. The invaders had to move in single file, bent over, which made them perfect targets. In the darkness, by the dim light of clay lamps, the city's defenders used a system of hidden niches for sudden attacks. In addition, deep pits with rotating stones and 2 massive millstones weighing several tons awaited the uninvited guests, which could only be locked from the inside. It was a perfect design for guerrilla warfare, where every meter of the tunnel worked against the attacker, and life underground was organized with remarkable precision. The city was equipped with food storage facilities, sleeping areas, and even a complex sewage system that carried waste far beyond the residential zones. Today, researchers are convinced that Nushabad is only a small part of a vast network. The Uyi tunnels may stretch for dozens of kilometers, connecting different settlements and fortresses in the region. Seeing these gloomy labyrinths, you realize that beneath Iran's residence is more than history. It's a true underground fortress, ready for a lengthy siege. And today, against the backdrop of growing tensions in the region, these ancient survival technologies are once again becoming frighteningly relevant. How many such cities are still hidden beneath the sands? And what secrets do they keep in their eternal darkness? It existed. Until recently, scientists believed that the grand project of building the Assyrian capital Dur-Sharrukin, Khorsabad, was left half-finished after the death of King Sargon II. However, new geophysical research proves the opposite. The city was completed and was actively functioning. Archaeologists used the magnetometry method, which made it possible to discover the remains of an impressive 127-room villa, probable royal gardens, and water gates, as well as other large structures. All these discoveries indicate that outside the main palace, Khorsabad was a thriving center. Conceived by Sargon II himself in 713 BC as the fortress of Sargon, the city of Khorsabad faded into oblivion after his death. New evidence contradicts the long-held belief about an unfinished project and reveals the hidden life of the ancient capital. Work resumed in 2017 after the area was liberated from ISIS. Under the guidance of the French archaeological mission, specialists used a high-precision magnetometer, which allows them to visualize underground structures without expensive excavations. It turned out that Khorsabad, contrary to long-standing doubts, served as a full-fledged capital of Assyria. And now, modern discoveries reveal even more deeply the scale and wealth of the ancient empire. The underground temple in Malta, the Haus Saflieni Hippogrium, is an ancient underground complex built around 4000 BC. It is one of the best prehistoric sites in the world. In 1980, it was included in the UNESCO World Heritage List. This incredible structure has several levels and chambers. Carved into the limestone rock, it was used as a place for burials and ritual ceremonies. The remains of more than 7,000 people have been found here. But the most fascinating thing about the Hippogrium is its unique acoustic properties. In the oracle chamber, sound resonates at astonishing frequencies, creating a unique acoustic effect. Antibiotics no longer work. In 2019, the WHO published a report stating that bacterial resistance to antibiotics is one of the most serious threats to human health. Not terrorism, not nuclear weapons, not asteroids, but bacterial resistance to antibiotics. At that time, about 700,000 people died each year from infections that could not be treated. That's more than from malaria and more than from diabetes. If you've ever taken antibiotics, and most people have, here's what happens inside. The antibiotic kills most of the bacteria that cause the infection, but not all of them. Those that survived have something that helped them withstand it, a small mutation, a genetic difference. They reproduce and pass this difference on to their offspring. After a few generations of bacteria, and for them, a generation is just 20 minutes, the population becomes resistant. The antibiotic no longer works. Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin in 1928 and received the Nobel Prize for it, warned about this very thing in his Nobel lecture. He literally said, "An ignorant person who doesn't finish their treatment and gives bacteria a chance to develop resistance bears moral responsibility for the deaths of those who get infected from them later." That was in 1945. Since then, we've used antibiotics in livestock on an industrial scale, given them for viral infections where they don't work at all, and haven't finished our treatments exactly as he warned. Now, there are bacteria in the world that are resistant to all known antibiotics, without exception. Not to most, but to all. Doctors call them superbugs, and the first cases of infection with them have been recorded in every country in the world. So far, there are relatively few such cases, and most people don't encounter them. But the number is growing every year. To understand how much this changes medicine, think about this. Heart surgery, organ transplants, cancer chemotherapy, complicated childbirth. All of this is only possible because after the operation, people are given antibiotics that prevent bacteria from taking advantage of the situation while the immune system is weakened. Take away antibiotics, and most of these procedures will become so dangerous that doctors will simply stop doing them. We would return to a world where a scratch from a rusty nail could kill a person. That's exactly the kind of world everyone lived in before the 1940s. New antibiotics are hardly being developed. It's not profitable for pharmaceutical companies because antibiotics are taken for a 10-day course, not for a lifetime, like blood pressure pills. The last fundamentally new class of antibiotics was discovered in the 1980s, and since then, nothing. Bacteria evolve quickly, while humanity is slow to find a replacement, and the gap between them grows every year. The secret arteries of Iran. If the underground Nushabad was a place for saving lives, then the next engineering network became the main condition for the existence of an entire civilization. We're used to thinking that Iran's main asset is oil, but for 3,000 years, the most valuable resource here was ordinary fresh water. To obtain it in the sun-scorched desert, the ancient Persians created a system whose scale modern science still cannot fully comprehend. We're talking about Qanats, grand underground aqueducts that turn dead sands into blooming oases. Just imagine the scale of this madness. The total length of all Qanats in Iran is an incredible 300,000 kilometers. To help you grasp the scale of this achievement, that's enough distance to wrap around the Earth almost 8 times at the equator. This is the longest and most complex hydraulic system ever created by human hands without the use of machines. The most astonishing part isn't the length, but the precise calculations. Ancient engineers, armed only with primitive levels and ropes, dug tunnels at depths of dozens of meters with a slope of just 1 to 2 millimeters per meter of distance. It was a masterpiece of precision work. If the slope was too steep, the water would quickly erode the rock and collapse the tunnel. If it was too shallow, the water would simply stagnate and silt up. The Qanat lasts so long because its water flows deep underground in total darkness. This completely eliminates evaporation even in the most extreme 50-degree heat when everything on the surface dries out in just a few hours. The construction of such a canal took decades and required the work of entire generations of specialists, who were called mukani. It was the most dangerous profession in the ancient world. A worker would descend into a narrow vertical shaft to a depth of up to 300 meters, which is the height of a modern skyscraper. In cramped conditions and under constant threat of collapse, he manually carved a path through the rock, relying on sound and air movement. The Qanat in the city of Nushabad, built 2,500 years ago, is still considered the pinnacle of this art. Its main shaft goes down to a depth comparable to the Eiffel Tower, and it still supplies pure water to about 40,000 people. Militarily, these underground arteries were Iran's main trump card. While enemy armies perished from thirst beneath the city walls, the defenders of the fortress enjoyed inexhaustible supplies of icy mountain water hidden deep underground. Besieging such cities was pointless. The water was out of reach for the enemy. It couldn't be poisoned or cut off without going underground. Today, these ancient corridors are surrounded by new rumors. Many of Iran's modern military facilities and secret ballistic missile depots are built using the same principles, and as some researchers claim, are even integrated into the old Qanat branches. This turns the country's underground into an endless labyrinth, where the ancient thirst for life merges with modern war technologies. We look at these wells in the desert and see only holes in the sand, but beneath them beats the heart of a civilization that has not stopped for 3,000 years. A secret underground city in England. Beneath the quiet English countryside, shrouded in mystery, lies one of the most famous underground cities, built in the late 1950s at the height of the Cold War. This secret bunker, known as Burlington, was designed to provide shelter for the British government in the event of a nuclear attack. Located on a 35-acre site and extending about 60 meters underground, Burlington could accommodate and support 4,000 officials and government employees for 3 months. It housed communication centers, a hospital, a broadcasting studio, and even an underground lake to provide fresh water. Although the facility was decommissioned in the early 2000s, it still stands as a fascinating example of Cold War-era planning and secrecy. The Carrington Event. On September 1, 1859, British astronomer Richard Carrington was sitting at his telescope, doing what he did almost every morning, sketching sunspots on the surface of the sun. The activity was so boring that most of his colleagues had long given it up. Nothing ever happens. A spot here, a spot there, just sketch them and go have some tea. At 11:18 in the morning, Carrington saw a white flash. Bright, unnaturally bright. He hadn't seen anything like it in 15 years of observations. For a moment, he thought a sunbeam from some mirror outside had hit his optics. He ran outside. No mirror? When he came back, the flash was already fading. He didn't know that he had just become the first person to witness a solar superstorm with his own eyes. 17 hours later, a stream of charged particles hit the Earth, what scientists now call a coronal mass ejection. Imagine the sun coughing, and that cough is a cloud of plasma that weighs billions of times more than all the airplanes, ships, and cars on Earth combined. That kind of mass was flying toward us at a speed of 3,000 kilometers per second. Auroras were visible in Havana, Cuba, and Bogota, Colombia. People in the Caribbean islands woke up at night, mistaking it for dawn, and went to work. In the mountains of Colorado, prospectors woke up at 4 a.m. and started making breakfast because the sky was so bright. Telegraph operators around the world disconnected the electric batteries from their devices to protect the equipment. The devices kept working. The atmospheric current was so powerful that the wires became antennas, receiving energy directly from the air. Several operators suffered serious burns. It sounds like an exciting story from the past, but now think about something else. In 1959, there wasn't a single satellite on Earth, not a single power plant, no internet, no banking servers, no water supply management systems, and no hospitals where every device and ventilator runs on electricity. NASA estimates the probability of a Carrington-level storm in the next 10 years at about 10 to 12%. That's not a small number. That's about the same probability as you getting an F on an exam if you show up completely unprepared. What will happen? Major transformers around the world will fail. This isn't a light bulb you can replace in 5 minutes. Manufacturing one of these transformers takes from 1 to 3 years, and it weighs several hundred tons, and almost no country has spare transformers like these. According to the U.S. National Academy of Sciences, the damage from a single event of this scale would be about $2 trillion. That's just for the American economy. Recovery would take at least 4 years. A solar storm doesn't kill you instantly. It just turns off the lights, cuts off the water, stops food deliveries to stores, and no one comes to help because the neighbors are in the same situation. Everyone is. The mysterious pyramids of Sedinga. This complex, discovered by archaeologists at the end of the 20th century, includes more than 80 pyramids, making it one of the largest burial sites in the Nubian Desert, which is in Sudan. The Sedinga pyramids were built during a period when Nubia was under the influence of ancient Egypt, and the rulers of the Kingdom of Kush sought to imitate Egyptian traditions and architecture. Most of the Sedinga pyramids are small in size compared to the Egyptian pyramids, with an average height ranging from 3 to 7 meters. They were built from sandstone and brick and were used as burial sites for the nobility and members of the ruling elite. Archaeologists have found ceramics, jewelry, and also mummy remains in these pyramids, which indicates the high level of skill of Nubian craftsmen. One of the mysteries of the Sedinga pyramids is their large number in a relatively small area, which makes this complex unique. The construction of such a large number of pyramids may indicate the important religious and cultural significance of this place for the ancient Nubians. Sedinga was also a place of worship for the goddess Hathor, who played a key role in the religious life of Nubia. The most mysterious people of Europe, archaeologists have discovered a Roman-era altar in a monastery on Mount Ariondi in northern Spain. It is dedicated to the mysterious deity Loraki. The find, dated to the 1st century AD, is important for studying the religious practices of the Vascones, one of the most mysterious peoples of Europe. This altar is one of 4 known altars to Loraki, but the only one found during excavations. The artifact was discovered at the bottom of a well in the Dunastebe monastery. The altar bears an inscription, Valeria Vitella fulfills her vow to Lauraki freely and deservedly. Mount Ariundi, inhabited since Roman times, is located in the valley of the Gulina River, not far from Pamplona. Its strategic location has made this place important throughout history, as evidenced by the remains of Roman infrastructure and a later monastery dedicated to St. Stephen. Little is known about Lauraki, and worship of this deity is evidenced by only 3 other altars. The new discovery expands the known geographical spread of the cult of Lauraki. Hadzur Kim Temple. Hadzur Kim Temple, located in Malta, is one of the oldest and most impressive megalithic structures, dating back to the Gantija phase in 1936 to 1936 BC. Located on a hill overlooking the Mediterranean Sea, this temple complex is one of the greatest archaeological evidences of ancient civilizations that existed long before the construction of the pyramids in Egypt and Stonehenge. Hadzur Kim and other megalithic temples of Malta have been recognized as unique masterpieces of architecture. The temple is built from massive stone blocks, some of which weigh up to 20 tons. The complex has a crescent-shaped facade, which is characteristic of Maltese temples of that era. The architectural features include inner halls, niches, and altars, which indicate the ritual and religious function of this structure. Inside the temples, figurines symbolizing fertility have been found. Interesting. Hagar Kim is notable for its orientation. The temple is designed in such a way that on the day of the summer solstice, the first rays of the sun enter through the central entrance and illuminate the interior of the complex. This fact indicates the astronomical knowledge of the ancient builders and their deep connection with natural cycles. The Bach casemates. In the city of Luxembourg, there is an impressive underground network of fortified tunnels and bastions known as the Bach casemates. Built by the Spanish at the beginning of the 17th century, the extensive underground gallery played a key role in the city's defense strategy, especially during the numerous sieges, wars, and conflicts that Luxembourg experienced throughout its history. In 1994, this extensive and unique underground defense system was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Today, visitors can explore the Bach casemates and learn about the military engineering expertise behind the impressive underground construction. The Bach casemates are among the most striking testaments to Luxembourg's military history. These structures demonstrate the complexity and sophistication of the defensive architecture of that time and are an example of military engineering. Magnetic poles. Take a compass, the needle points north. Every schoolchild knows this, and it has worked for thousands of years. Sailors crossed oceans relying on this simple fact. Now, here's the thing. North is not where you think it is. The Earth's magnetic pole is constantly moving. It used to happen slowly, 10 to 15 kilometers per year, almost unnoticeable. But in 1990, something happened, and the speed increased fourfold. Now, the pole is creeping at a speed of 55 kilometers per year, and it hasn't stopped for 30 years. During this time, it has shifted more than it did in the previous 1.5 centuries. Scientists say this is due to changes in the liquid iron deep in the Earth's core. At a depth of 3,000 kilometers into the planet, molten metal flows like thick jelly, only it's very deep and hot. These flows create the magnetic field. The flows change and the field changes with them. Okay, so what? Well, the pole is moving, so what? They'll just update the maps, that's all. The magnetic field is Earth's shield from the solar wind. A constant stream of charged particles from the sun hits our planet every second. Without the shield, these particles would simply blow the atmosphere into space, like wind blowing away smoke. That's exactly how Mars lost its oceans 3 billion years ago. Its field disappeared and the atmosphere followed. Now it's minus 60 degrees there, and there's no air to breathe. Over the past 100 to 150 years, Earth's field has weakened by about 10%. That's on average. But over the South Atlantic, above Brazil, Argentina, and the southern part of the ocean, it has weakened by a third. Scientists call this the South Atlantic anomaly. In this zone, satellites regularly malfunction. The onboard electronics fail for no apparent reason. Cosmonauts on the ISS turn off their computers when passing through this zone because the radiation penetrates the shielding even in orbit. Geologists can read the history of the magnetic field right in the rock. When lava solidifies, Tiny iron particles in it align with the magnetic field, like billions of little compass needles. Scientists have studied rocks that are hundreds of millions of years old and discovered that the poles have flipped 100 times. North became south, and south became north. The last time this happened was about 780,000 years ago. During the process, the field first becomes very weak, and the planet is left without a shield for several hundred years. Is this process happening now? No one knows. Maybe it's just a normal fluctuation. But what we see in the data, acceleration, weakening, expansion of anomalous zones, is exactly what preceded previous flips in the geological record. The next threat is of a different kind. It doesn't come from space or from underground. It lives in the water, and it is exactly what determines whether there will be food on your table in 20 years. The city of Guanajuato. The city of Guanajuato, located in the central part of Mexico, is famous for its network of narrow streets, alleys, and tunnels stretching beneath the city's colorful facades. These underground passages were originally created to divert water from the silver mines, which were the lifeblood of the city during the Spanish colonial period. Over time, these tunnels were transformed into functional roads and sidewalks, offering an alternative way to get around underground, unlike the busy streets on the surface. Visitors to Guanajuato can use these unique underground passages while learning about the city's vibrant history, rich in silver mining, trade, and the influence of the Spanish colonial era. As is well known, Guanajuato is not only famous for its unique architecture, but also for its rich history. These underground passages are a testament to the remarkable adaptation and innovation used to address infrastructure and economic challenges throughout different periods. The Sigiriya graffiti are unique inscriptions found on the walls of the ancient Sigiriya fortress. They are located on top of a monolithic rock in the central part of Sri Lanka. This graffiti represents one of the most important collections of ancient inscriptions on the island, dating approximately from the 5th to the 8th centuries AD. They were left by visitors to the fortress, including poets, pilgrims, and travelers, on the mirror walls, polished to a shine, that once adorned the inner halls and corridors of the palace. The Sigiriya graffiti consists of poetic lines, comments, and personal impressions. They are written in the Sinhalese language using ancient forms of script. Despite their historical value, the interpretation of the Sigiriya graffiti is a subject of debate among historians. Questions about who exactly left these inscriptions, their social status, motives, and purposes remain unanswered. Some researchers believe that the graffiti were created by members of the upper classes who visited the palace. Others suggest that they might have belonged to pilgrims and merchants, indicating that the fortress was accessible to the general public. Life inside a volcano. If the previous structures were created solely for war or supply purposes, then this place proves that underground in Iran, people could not only survive but live fully for centuries. We are heading to the foot of Mount Sahand, to the unique village of Kandavan. From a distance, this place looks like a giant anthill or a set from a science fiction movie. Here, people didn't build houses out of bricks. They literally carved their homes inside the solidified lava. These unusual cone-shaped rocks are called Kandovan. They were formed millions of years ago after a powerful eruption, when streams of molten material mixed with ash and mud. Over time, wind and water turned these boulders into sharp peaks as tall as a 5-story building. But the most interesting part began about 700 years ago. Legends say that the first inhabitants came here to escape the advancing Mongol army. They discovered that volcanic tuff is soft enough to work with, but when it comes into contact with air, it becomes as strong as granite. Inside each of these stone cones, there is a fully fledged multi-level apartment. Usually the first floor is used as a livestock pen, the second and third as living rooms, and at the very top there are storage rooms. The walls are up to 3 meters thick. This creates a unique thermos effect. While icy winds rage outside and the temperature drops to -20 degrees, a pleasant warmth is maintained inside. In summer, when the sun literally melts the stone, these caves remain refreshingly cool. The engineering of Kandavan is impressive in its simplicity and effectiveness. Every window and every niche is carved in such a way as to make the most of the sunlight throughout the day. Inside the rocks, staircases are carved to connect the floors, and the walls are polished smooth. The most amazing thing is that Kandavan is not a dead museum. people still live here. Today, inside these ancient caves, you can see modern televisions, refrigerators, and even high-speed internet. The residents have adapted ancient technology to meet the needs of the 21st century, creating what may be the most eco-friendly and secure housing on the planet. Kandavan highlights a key aspect of Iranian culture, the ability to use the landscape for protection and living. This is living proof that people are capable of turning even harsh volcanic rocks into a cozy home that cannot be destroyed by time or wars. Underground rituals. In the depths of the mountainous region of central Anatolia lies the ancient underground city of Ursini. According to legends based on local traditions, Ursini was carved into the rocks back in the time of the Gedic kingdom, around 800 BC. The city was intended to protect against enemy invasions and bad weather. Ursini extends 4 levels deep underground, including residential areas, public spaces, and even a small underground temple. A unique ventilation system consisting of long, narrow channels provided a supply of fresh air. In addition, the city had wells for water extraction and places for food storage. The most mysterious part of Ursini is the Hall of Shadows, where, according to legend, mysterious rituals were performed. The walls of the hall are decorated with intricate reliefs depicting mythical creatures and symbols, the meaning of which remains unknown to this day. Historians believe that Ursini might have been used as a temporary shelter during times of war or natural disasters, but some studies suggest that the city might have been a permanent residence for a special segment of the population. The ocean conveyor AMOC. Somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean right now, a huge mass of water is moving. It moves slowly from the tropics northward, just a few centimeters per second, but its volume is 100 times greater than the Amazon. This current has been running for more than 10,000 years without stopping. It is what makes Western Europe suitable for living. London and Moscow are located at about the same latitude, but in London it's plus 5 degrees in winter, while in Moscow it's minus 20. This difference is the warmth the current brings to Europe from the tropics. Take away this current, and in a few decades, the climate of Great Britain will become similar to that of southern Canada, and Norway will become like Alaska. But that's not all. This same current affects the monsoons in India, the rains on which the harvest for 1.5 billion people depends. It determines the amount of rainfall in Brazil, which has the world's largest production of soybeans and beef. One movement of water in the Atlantic and what ends up on store shelves on 3 continents depends on it. In 2021, a group of climatologists published a study in the journal Nature Climate Change. They spent several years reconstructing the history of this current through the composition of marine sediments, tree rings, and ice cores in Greenland. The conclusion was calm in form, but terrifying in content. This current is now weaker than at any other time in at least the last 1,000 years. Mainstream scientists say it's not critical yet. It's still working, although more slowly. But computer models give an unpleasant range of forecasts. Some show that if the trend continues, the current could slow down significantly as early as this century. And geological data from the past shows when this current slowed down sharply before, Europe's climate changed not over thousands of years, but over decades. Imagine it another way. You live in an apartment with heating. It has worked your whole life and the whole life of your parents and grandparents. You never thought about it. It just exists. And then the engineers say the system is weakening. Maybe it will recover, or maybe at some point it will just shut off, and it will be impossible to restore it. Because it's not a pipe that can be replaced in a week. This is also a kind of heating, only for entire continents, and there is no button to turn it back on. Another detail that makes this real. In 2010, there was an especially cold summer in Europe. Abnormally cold. The grain harvest in several countries dropped. Scientists later linked this to a temporary weakening of the current. Even one season of slight weakening is already noticeable. Now imagine this not as a temporary glitch, but as a gradual, years-long process. Year after year, a bit colder year after year, a bit less rain in India year after year, a bit less harvest. In Brazil, individually, nothing terrible, but together and over decades. And then we'll be facing a completely different story. Underground city in Bolivia. In the deep deserts of the plains of southern Bolivia lie the ruins of the mysterious underground city of Yanaku. According to local legends dating back to around the 7th century, AD, Yanaku was built by ancient civilizations. as a refuge from frequent droughts and military conflicts. The structure of the city includes a complex network of tunnels and chambers located on different levels. The levels are connected by staircases and slopes carved into the rock, and a unique water supply system provided the inhabitants with water even during the driest periods. Ancient drawings and glyphs have been found on the walls of certain chambers, which, according to scientists, could be the key to understanding the lifestyle and culture of the inhabitants of Yanaku. Research shows that Yanaku may have been not only a refuge, but also a center of cultural and religious significance. However, the reasons for its sudden fall into oblivion remain a mystery. Today, Yanaku is a unique archaeological heritage site that attracts researchers and history enthusiasts from all over the world. The burial of an ancestor of the Germans. Archaeologists have discovered the burial of a man who belonged to the Alemanni people, who lived in the territory of modern-day Germany almost 2,000 years ago. Although only one burial has been found so far, researchers believe that there may be more similar discoveries in this area. During rescue excavations in Gerstetten, Germany, carried out as part of preparations for housing construction, archaeologists found a chamber grave of the Alemanni. The Alemanni are a confederation of Germanic tribes, first mentioned in 213 AD, and were known for their settlement on the eastern bank of the Rhine River. During the excavation, the team discovered a wooden structure with the remains of a man. Artifacts were found near his skeleton, such as ceramic and glass vessels, a decorated comb, and a glass goblet of high status. Most likely he was from the nearby late Roman fort of Guntia Mangunst. A sample of the man's rib was sent for radiocarbon analysis to a laboratory in Mannheim, the results of which confirmed that the man likely died between 263 and 263,342 AD. Noah's Ark has been found. According to the Bible, Noah's Ark saved people and animals from the Great Flood. And now, after 5,000 years, researchers have once again turned their attention to one of the most mysterious places, the Durupinar Formation in Turkey. This 163-meter structure amazingly matches the biblical description of the legendary vessel in size. Scientists from Istanbul Technical University and Agri Ibrahim Seyçen University have been studying the area since 2021. A recent analysis of 30 soil samples revealed clay, marine deposits, and mollusk remains that are 3,000 to 5,000 years old. This suggests that the region really did experience a powerful flood. The formation is located just 30 kilometers from Mount Ararat, where, according to the Bible, the Ark came to rest after the flood. The size of the structure is also close to the biblical description. The supposed length of the Ark is 157 meters, while the Durupinar site is 163 meters. However, many geologists are skeptical about the hypothesis. They believe that the Durupinar site is just a natural formation. Nevertheless, the discovery continues to attract interest and new research. Skeleton Lake. At the bottom of Lake Rupkund in the Indian Himalayas, hundreds of human skeletons have been discovered, which gave it the name Skeleton Lake. The age of these remains varies greatly, and it is still not exactly known how all these people died. It was previously assumed that they might have been victims of a single catastrophe, such as a powerful storm that took the lives of a large group of people. Recent studies have only made the mystery more complicated. Scientists conducted DNA analysis of 38 of the discovered bodies and found that the remains belonged to people from different eras, with a difference of thousands of years. These people arrived at the lake at different periods of time, which disproved the theory of the mass death of a single group. The research began 10 years ago, when geneticist Kumarasamy Tangaraj from the Indian Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology sequenced the mitochondrial DNA of 72 skeletons. Some had Indian ancestry, but some of the remains belonged to people with DNA characteristic of residents of Western Europe, particularly Crete and the West.
Европы, в частности Крита и Греции.
Interestingly, these finds also span a wide range of time periods. Most of the bones date back to the 7th to 10th centuries AD, but among them are also remains from the 19th and 20th centuries. The causes of death of these people remain unknown, which adds mystery to this place. Tomb in the rock. In Malta, builders accidentally stumbled upon an ancient tomb about 2,300 years old. In September, while installing new water lines near a hospital in the city of Birkirkara, workers discovered a chamber carved into the rock. Later, archaeologists confirmed that it was a Punic tomb. During subsequent excavations, the central shaft of the tomb and 3 burial chambers were discovered. The entrances to them were sealed with original stone slabs. Through narrow gaps, archaeologists saw skeletons and artifacts. Inside the chambers, there were bones arranged in a specific order, as well as urns with ashes. The bones were probably moved to make room for new burials. A total of at least 14 burials were found in the 3 chambers. The remains have already been moved to the laboratory for further analysis. Archaeologists plan to conduct radiocarbon dating and DNA analysis to learn more about the Punic community that created this tomb. The Punic civilization, also known as the Carthaginian Republic, was one of the most influential powers in the Mediterranean until it was conquered by the Romans around 150 BC.
Года до нашей эры.
Italian underground city located on top of a volcanic rock in Umbria, Italy, the city of Orvieto fascinates visitors with its underground wonders. Beneath the streets of the city lies a complex network of more than 1,200 caves, wells, tunnels, and galleries, revealing the rich history of Orvieto. As early as the 9th century BC, this place was inhabited by the Etruscans, and many underground features, such as cisterns and tombs, date back to that time. Special attention should be given to the impressive St. Patrick's Well, Pozzo di San Patricio, built in 1537. It goes down to a depth of 62 meters and is a striking example of Renaissance engineering. From ancient wineries to places for breeding pigeons, the underground city of Orvieto offers an incredible journey through time. The Yellowstone supervolcano. Every year, 4 million people visit Yellowstone National Park in the United States. They look at geysers, hot springs, boiling mud, and take pictures. None of them think about what is right beneath their feet. Beneath Yellowstone, there is a huge chamber filled with molten rock. It's about 80 kilometers long and 50 kilometers wide. If you poured all that volume into standard swimming pools, you would need 160 million pools. That's exactly why there are geysers there. The ground is literally boiling from below. Yellowstone has erupted 3 times. 2 million years ago, then once more, and then 640,000 years ago. If you look at the intervals between eruptions, the next one is theoretically already 40,000 years overdue. Geology doesn't work like a bus schedule, so it isn't a certainty. But there's no reason to relax either. In a full-scale eruption, ash would cover most of North America within a few hours. Even 1,000 kilometers from Yellowstone, the ash layer would be half a meter thick. This kills crops, contaminates water, and stops transportation. Aviation comes to a halt. Airplane engines can't handle an ash cloud. A small Icelandic volcano showed this in 2000, paralyzing European air traffic for weeks. But Yellowstone is 1,000 times stronger. Still, the main concern isn't the explosion itself, but what follows. Billions of tons of ash in the atmosphere block sunlight. The temperature on the planet drops. Not everywhere, and not all the time, but for several years. Crops will disappear all over the earth. Famine starts. People in America where the volcano erupted won't survive, but those in Africa, Asia, and Latin America might, despite limited supplies. Yellowstone isn't the only such volcano. There are about 20 similar sites on Earth. The Phlegraean Fields in Italy, right under Naples. Mountains with 3 million residents, the Toba volcano in Indonesia. Its eruption, 74,000 years ago, according to some sources, reduced the human population to just a few thousand people. Our species almost literally disappeared. Scientists report that Yellowstone has less than a 1% chance of a major eruption in the next 100 years. That's honest and likely true. But before the eruption of Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines in 1991, scientists were saying the same thing. A week before it spewed 10 cubic kilometers of ash into the atmosphere and lowered the global temperature by half a degree for 2 years. Fractions of a percent are still not zero. And the last detail worth keeping in mind, Mount Toba in Indonesia, its eruption. 74,000 years ago, according to some reports, reduced the human population on the planet to just a few thousand people. We literally almost ceased to exist. That's exactly why all people on Earth are so genetically similar. We're all descendants of that small surviving group. Every time you think something like that can't happen again, remember that it has already happened once. The next threat, the only one on our list, that we can't do anything about. Absolutely nothing. It will come without warning, and we'll have 0 seconds to react. The city beneath the cliffs. In a secluded corner of the Andalusian region of Spain lies the charming town of Seteno de las Bodegas, built right into the rock. The homes here are literally carved into the cliff, and the overhanging cliffs serve as natural shelter and insulation. The town's unique architecture dates back to the 12th century. This place was once a thriving Moorish settlement. Today, Seteno de las Bodegas attracts tourists from all over the world, offering them the chance to explore winding streets dotted with tapas bars, shops, and views opening up to the picturesque surrounding countryside. Step pyramids in Spain. The pyramids of Guimar are a unique archaeological complex located on the island of Tenerife, one of the Canary Islands belonging to Spain. These pyramid structures, built from basalt stones, attract the attention of researchers and tourists thanks to their mysterious history and unusual architecture. There are a total of 6 pyramids in the complex, which have a stepped shape and terraced bases reminiscent of the structures of ancient Mesoamerican civilizations. Some researchers believe that the pyramids were built by the ancient Aborigines of the Canary Islands, the Guanches, who used them for ritual and religious purposes. In support of this theory, they point to the similarity of the Guimar pyramids with other ancient structures, which were used for worshiping gods and conducting ceremonies. However, there is also an alternative point of view, which suggests that the pyramids were built in the 19th century as part of agricultural terraces. A distinctive feature of the Guimar pyramids is their orientation in relation to astronomical landmarks. Studies have shown that the pyramids are built in such a way as to be aligned with the solstice. On the day of the summer solstice, you can observe a unique phenomenon when the shadow of the pyramids aligns perfectly with their edges, creating the effect of a double sunset. This astronomical alignment suggests the possible use of the pyramids as an observatory or for conducting calendar rituals. Mysterious holes in Yamal. Alexander Eastman, a geologist from Novosibirsk. In 2014, he got a call from herders in Yamal. They said they had found a hole in the tundra. He thought they were exaggerating. He flew there and couldn't believe his eyes. A perfectly round pit, 30 meters in diameter, more than 70 meters deep. The edges were turned outward, as if the ground had exploded from the inside. There were no traces of meteorites and no military facilities nearby, just a hole. He went down inside. The air there was saturated with methane, hundreds of times above normal. It became clear what had happened. Gas had accumulated under the surface under enormous pressure. Then it burst out, like a cork from a bottle of champagne. Only instead of a cork, it was earth weighing several thousand tons. Where did the gas come from? All of Siberia is permafrost. The ground there hasn't thawed for thousands of years. It contains the remains of everything that ever lived there: grass, trees, mammoths. None of it decays as long as it's cold. But when the ground starts to warm up, it begins to decompose and releases methane. A lot of methane. Methane as a greenhouse gas is about 80 times more powerful than CO2. And the area of permafrost on the planet is larger than Russia and the United States combined. It contains 3 times more carbon than humanity has emitted into the atmosphere during the entire Industrial Revolution. If it starts to thaw quickly, the climate will begin to warm even faster. This causes more permafrost to thaw, continuing the cycle. Since the first Yamal crater, dozens more have been found. Scientists are monitoring hundreds of places from satellites where the ground is starting to swell. In 2023, NASA reported that the permafrost is thawing faster than predicted, decades ahead of calculations. This doesn't mean a catastrophe today, but it means the process is happening faster than we thought. Alexander Eastman says that after that first hole, his understanding of the tundra changed. Before, it just seemed like frozen ground to him. Now he sees it as a storage that is starting to be opened from the inside. The craters in Yamal are something we can already see today. But there is a process that is much less noticeable and much more extensive. Thousands of lakes in the Arctic tundra are starting to bubble. Gas is coming up from the bottom. Scientists ride boats and set these bubbles on fire, and pillars of fire flare up over the lakes. This is not a special effect. This is methane that is simply coming out from under the bottom silt. At the same time, the permafrost itself is also destroying infrastructure. Houses, pipelines, and airports in Siberia and Alaska are built on it. When it starts to melt, buildings begin to sink and tilt. In several Russian Arctic cities, you can already see the houses with the naked eye. They are crooked. This is not happening over thousands of years. This is happening over decades. There is something else in this same permafrost. Something alive. Something we've never seen before. And in 2016, it came out. New Mayan ruins. Archaeologists are finding more and more ruins of the Mayan civilization thanks to new technologies and satellites that help detect structures hidden beneath dense forests. As professor of archaeology at Texas Tech University, Brad Houck said at a NASA conference, in the past 10 years, scientists have discovered more Mayan sites than in the previous 150 years. The main tool that helps with this is LIDAR technology, laser LIDAR. LIDAR allows us to see through dense forest vegetation and reveals structures that were previously hidden. With this technology, archaeologists are discovering new ruins in the territories of modern Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize. One such project is a study in the northeastern part of Belize, where a team of scientists is examining an area of 650 square kilometers. In just a few days, the scientists discovered 28 new large sites. The ancient technologies used by the Maya for water management and agriculture may prove useful even in our time. Tim Murda from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte noted that the Maya adapted to changing climate conditions by creating terrace systems and reservoirs to cope with droughts. These ancient methods can serve as an important lesson in the context of modern climate change. Hidden chambers in Scotland. In the shadow of modern Edinburgh, Scotland, there are mysterious underground chambers known as the Edinburgh Vaults. Built in the 18th century, these underground spaces were originally used as warehouses and workshops for the city's growing businesses. However, over time, conditions in the vaults deteriorated, and they became a center of illegal activity, including smuggling, brewing, and providing shelter for the city's poor. Today, tours of the Edinburgh Vaults give visitors the chance to delve into the city's darker history and explore the gloomy candlelit chambers and passageways that have survived to this day. As many know, the Edinburgh Vaults are a testament to the dark side of the city's history. They tell the story of ordinary people's lives and the hardships they faced in those times. The Wieliczka Salt Mine. The Wieliczka Mine is located near Krakow in Poland. It is a grand underground complex that has been in operation since the 13th century. With 9 levels descending to a depth of more than 327 meters, an astonishing amount of rock salt, about 200 million tons, has been extracted here. Today, the Wieliczka mine is a popular tourist attraction. Visitors can embark on an exciting journey through the mine's historical and mythical chambers, where they will find magnificent salt sculptures, including the famous work The Last Supper, as well as various chandeliers made from salt minerals. The mine also houses a resort where guests can try halotherapy, a treatment using salt that is believed to help with various respiratory diseases and skin problems. The ancient city in Micronesia. This amazing complex was built on artificial islands connected by a network of canals, which is why it is often called the Venice of the Pacific Ocean. The complex includes about 100 artificial islets. The islands were created from massive basalt blocks, arranged in such a way as to form walls, platforms, and buildings. Each structure is surrounded by water channels, which makes this place even more mysterious and impressive. The age of Nan Madol is estimated to be about 1,500 years, but some studies suggest that the first structures may have appeared much earlier. Archaeologists believe that the construction of this complex began at the end of the first millennium AD, possibly under the leadership of local rulers. The Saudalir and Saudarer dynasties used Nan Madol as a ceremonial and administrative center. The main mystery of Nan Madol is how the inhabitants of Pohnpei Island were able to build such a complex and massive city with limited technology and resources. Each basalt block used in the construction weighs from several hundred kilograms to several tons. Transporting and installing such heavy blocks would have required significant effort and knowledge. Basalt was quarried on the other side of the island, which meant it had to be transported across difficult terrain and water. Considering that the ancient builders didn't have modern machinery, this achievement seems almost impossible. Some researchers suggest that the stone blocks could have been transported using rafts and ropes. Others point to the possible use of a system of levers and ramps. However, none of these theories fully explain how the ancient Micronesians managed to lay and align these massive structures so precisely. Nan Madol is also surrounded by many legends and myths. Local residents believe that the city possesses magical properties and that it was built using supernatural powers. Some myths claim that Nan Madol was home to spirits and was used for rituals related to ancestor worship. To this day, this ancient city inspires awe and respect among the residents of Panapa, and they avoid visiting Nan Madol after sunset, believing it to be a place inhabited by spirits. It awoke in Siberia. In the summer of 2016, a 12-year-old boy died in Yamal, diagnosed with anthrax, a disease that hadn't been seen in this region since 1941. For 75 years, it was absent here, and suddenly it appeared again. Several dozen more people fell ill, and thousands of reindeer died. What happened? That summer was unusually hot. The permafrost in one area thawed deeper than usual, and the body of a reindeer that had been buried in the ground since 1941 was exposed. The anthrax bacteria in it had remained alive for 75 years. Permafrost is the perfect preservative. The temperature is around zero, there's no oxygen, and no light. Some microbes not only survive in such conditions, they can come back to life after thousands of years. In 2015, French scientists extracted a 30,000-year-old virus from Siberian ice, placed it in laboratory conditions, and it came back to life and began to reproduce. And before that, it simply waited for 30,000 years. That virus only infects single-celled amoebas, not humans. But in the permafrost lie the remains of mammoths, woolly rhinoceroses, and early humans. All of them suffered from diseases that no longer exist today. We have no immunity to them. We've never encountered them before. We didn't evolve alongside them. At the same time, humanity is now actively developing the Arctic, building roads, drilling wells, and extracting oil. Every drilling rig is an intrusion into the frozen layer that hasn't been touched for thousands of years. Every hot summer means a few more centimeters of thawed ground. Every centimeter is another layer of what's inside. At the same time, virologists talk about another scenario. In history, pandemics almost always started with a single contact, a human and an animal that had never met before. Ebola from bats in the tropical forest, SARS from markets in southern China. The Spanish flu of 1918 killed more people than all of World War I. It took between 50 and 100 million lives in about 2 years. At first, people always thought, that's far away and won't affect us. But it will. They try to anticipate and be prepared for what will happen if a disease with the lethality of Ebola ever appears. It would kill every second or third person on the planet, but one that is transmitted by airborne droplets, like the flu. Ebola doesn't spread far because it kills its host too quickly, but viruses are constantly mutating. In one sick person, the virus divides trillions of times a day. Most mutations are dead ends, but 1 in a million could be different. This is not science fiction. It was exactly this kind of mutation that scientists were tracking in 2012 when a modified bird flu virus capable of airborne transmission was created in a laboratory. The publication of the research was blocked by several governments who considered it too dangerous for open access. This means that the line between the impossible and what has already happened is thinner than we think. Did you know about this 30,000-year-old virus that scientists actually revived? And where did it go after that? Write in the comments. The next story is about 225,000 people who died in just a few hours, and about why something similar could happen again on a much larger scale. The Fort Canning Bunker, hidden beneath the greenery of Fort Canning Park in Singapore, is an artifact that serves as a reminder of the country's World War II history. Also known as the Battle Box, the Fort Canning Bunker is a former underground military command center built by the British in the 1930s. Consisting of 26 rooms and 2 floors, this underground facility once served as the headquarters of British General Percival during the Battle of Singapore. Today, tours of the Fort Canning bunker allow visitors to explore the well-preserved rooms, including the cipher room, telephone exchange, and air filtration system, and to learn about Singapore's wartime experience. As is well known, the Battle Box is not only a monument to military history, but also a testament to Singapore's strategic significance in the global conflicts of that time. This site demonstrates the level of military engineering skill and planning employed by the British during wartime conditions. A sanctuary inside the rocks. Deep within the Iranian mountains, there are sites that have remained invisible to outsiders for centuries. These are the temples of the god Mithra, mysterious underground sanctuaries where rituals were performed thousands of years ago, the details of which still baffle scientists. Mithraism was a religion of warriors and the elite, and its main requirement was absolute secrecy. That is why Mithraea, as these temples were called, were always built either completely underground or carved into rocks. The most impressive example of such a structure is located near the city of Maragay. This is the Mare Temple, which is a giant hall carved inside a huge hill. When you enter inside, your perception of space changes. This is not just a cave, but a perfectly weathered geometric structure. The huge dome carved in the monolithic stone impresses with its precision. The ancient builders did not use supporting columns or external supports. The entire vault is held together by engineering calculations and the strength of the rock itself. There is a single opening in the center of the dome, through which a thin beam of sunlight enters. At different times of the year, this beam falls on specific areas of the floor, serving as a kind of astronomical calendar for the priests. The atmosphere inside such temples was both oppressive and majestic. There were no windows here, and the only source of light, apart from the sun, was oil torches. Temple walls were often adorned with reliefs of constellations and mythological scenes. Scientists still argue about how the craftsmen managed to perform such fine, detailed carving in conditions of almost complete darkness. They probably used a system of bronze mirrors that passed sunlight from one mirror to the next into the deepest corners of the sanctuary. But the most interesting thing is the acoustics. Due to the vault's unique shape, even a quiet whisper at one end of the hall is clearly heard at the other. This created the effect of the deity's presence and enhanced the psychological impact during initiation rituals. The warriors who came here for consecration took an oath of loyalty, which could not be broken under penalty of death. This tradition of deep devotion and discipline endured in the Iranian mountains for centuries. Today, many of these temples are abandoned or have been turned into mosques, but their underground structure remains unchanged. They remind us that for the ancient inhabitants of Iran, the underground world was not a place of fear, but a space of supreme true power. While empires and religions changed on the surface, ancient knowledge continued to live in the darkness of the rocks, which even today makes us stand in awe of the skill of those who knew how to master stone itself. The energy of water. On December 26, 2004, thousands of tourists on the beaches of Thailand noticed that the sea began to recede from the shore. It wasn't like a normal low tide, but much faster and much farther, exposing hundreds of meters of the seafloor with fish flopping on the open sand. And the people who went to watch this spectacle had about 10 minutes. An earthquake occurred under the Indian Ocean, which literally thrust a piece of the seafloor upward. All the water above it was hit from below, like water in a bucket that's suddenly pushed, and that water rushed toward the shores. 225,000 people died in 14 countries within a few hours. There is a volcano near the Canary Islands in the Atlantic, on the island of La Palma, and geologists have long considered part of its slope to be unstable. If that area collapses into the ocean, calculations show that the wave reaching the east coast of the U.S. about 8 hours later would be as tall as a 14-story apartment building. And New York, Miami, and Washington are located on an absolutely flat shore, literally at sea level. Scientists argue about how realistic this scenario is, and many believe that the most frightening calculations are exaggerated. Maybe, but in 2021, there was a real eruption on La Palma that lasted almost 3 months. And during all that time, geophysicists around the world had their eyes glued to to the seismic monitors. The western slope held, but for 3 months it was watched with grave concern. The tsunami warning system in the Indian Ocean did not exist at all until 2004. It just never occurred to anyone that it was needed, and it was only created after the disaster. Today it exists, but even with a warning, a person on the shore only has a few minutes and only if there is somewhere to run. By 2004, some shores didn't even have that. Japan is the only country that, after the 2011 tsunami when almost 20,000 people died, built protective walls along 400 kilometers of coastline, up to 15 meters high. It was the country's costliest construction project. When journalists asked local residents if this protects them, many answered honestly, "If the wave is higher than the wall, we simply won't be here. The wall gives us time to escape, nothing more." Nowhere else in the world has built something like this. Remember, a tsunami kills with more than just water. It carries with it everything that was on the shore: cars, trees, pieces of houses, which turn into battering rams in the water. In 2004, there were stretches of coastline where, after the water receded, nothing was left at all. No trees, no foundations, just bare ground. And that was a relatively small wave by historical standards. The most powerful tsunami in recorded history reached a height of about 50 meters and moved at the speed of a jet plane. The underground city in Montreal. Beneath the bustling streets of Montreal in Canada lies an amazing creation of modern times, the underground city, or La Ville Souterraine. Its construction began in 1962, and today this underground network covers more than 32 kilometers of tunnels and spaces, connecting various commercial, retail, and transportation hubs. With climate control and a wide range of shops, restaurants, hotels, theaters, and office complexes, the underground city offers a unique and convenient refuge for both residents and visitors of Montreal during the harsh winter months. However, it's interesting to note that locals rarely use the term La Ville Souterraine. The more common name for this network of interconnected tunnels and spaces is the underground city. A city in the heart of the Sahara, Central Sahara in Niger, is an area that is virtually inaccessible to people. Any tourist traveling south from the Mediterranean coast has faced a huge number of obstacles. Giant dunes, exhausting heat, and drying winds create a landscape that is almost devoid of life. But those who venture deep into the Great Desert are in for a surprise. Surrounded by sandy canyons on a lonely plateau lie the ruins of the huge fortress city of Jado. These ruins, which are between 800 and 1,000 years old, are a mystery. The city appeared when this part of the desert was much wetter and more fertile. Little is known about the inhabitants of these places, and who built this city remains unknown. The fortress city of Jado is Aksar, a typical North African fortified settlement. Such settlements usually consist of residential buildings constructed around a central food storage, with an emphasis on defensive functions. Qasars like Jado were built from palm trunks covered with an adobe mixture, hardened by desert winds to the strength of metal. What sets Jado apart from most similar SARs is its incredible size. The colossal fortress towers over the desert, dwarfing the entire surrounding landscape. The Kanuri people, who inhabit the desert in the heart of the Sahara, were the last known inhabitants of this place. It is possible that the city was inherited by them from a more ancient culture about which no records have survived. The turning point that forced the Kanuri to leave Jado was probably the depletion of drinking water. As the green landscape turned into a desert, the water became brackish, and the environment too harsh for survival. People lived on the Jado Plateau for about 60,000 years, leaving behind rock paintings and other evidence of their presence. Small livestock were raised here as early as 7000 BC, and cattle appeared around 3,500 BC. Rock paintings found in the Air Mountains, dating from about 5,500 to 4,500 years ago, depict a world with lush vegetation and abundant animals, completely unlike the modern landscape. Today, reaching the once great city is very difficult. This part of the world is unstable, and the tribes inhabiting the area are constantly fighting for limited resources. The Kanuri now live in the nearby desert village of Shirfa, but every year they return to the place of their ancestors to harvest dates. Strangely, the date palms continue to bear fruit. The Kanuri are a remnant of the ancient Kanem civilization, which ruled Central Sahara from 700 to 1300 AD. The origins of this empire are shrouded in mystery, and it is unknown whether Jado was founded during this period or even earlier. If the Kanem built Jado, then excavations could reveal a lot about this culture. But if they inherited it, perhaps someday something else will be discovered, hidden from human eyes and protected by the desert, waiting to reveal all its secrets. Pompeii is one of the most famous ancient cities, tragically destroyed by the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, located near modern Naples. It, along with the neighboring cities of Herculaneum and Stabiae, was buried under a thick layer of volcanic ash and pumice from 4 to 6 meters deep. This catastrophic event completely destroyed the city, but thanks to the fact that the ash preserved many buildings and artifacts, Pompeii has survived almost exactly as it was at the moment of its destruction. Today, Pompeii offers a unique opportunity to see the life of an ancient Roman city. Streets, houses, temples, amphitheaters, and shops have been preserved with amazing detail. Plaster casts of the bodies of residents and animals made by archaeologists have also been preserved. After organic materials such as bodies decomposed, cavities formed in the layers of ash. Archaeologists use plaster to recreate the poses of people in their final moments. One of the most famous monuments is the Garden of the Fugitives, where you can see 13 such casts capturing the tragic moments of an attempted escape. This is truly considered one of the most unique places on our planet. In New Zealand, one of the most important archaeological discoveries of recent decades was a Maori ocean-going vessel. Father and son, Wayne and Ben Dix, found the remains of an ancient ocean-going canoe, waka, on the coast of Chatham Island, Rikohu. At first, they didn't even realize what they had discovered, thinking it was just an old piece of wood. However, after the initial excavation, it became clear. In front of them was a huge wooden vessel that could be about 500 years old. Archaeologists have already extracted more than 400 fragments of the vessel from the ground, made from New Zealand trees such as pukatia, totara, and rimu. Experts believe that the find is related to the Moriori people, the indigenous inhabitants of Chatham Island. It may be the legendary Waka Ringjehoa, mentioned in ancient living texts. The discovered canoe stands out not only for its size, but also for its unique construction, which testifies to the high skill of Moriori navigators. Archaeologists believe that studying the waka will help us better understand how the islands of the region were settled, the routes ancient peoples traveled, and how far the sea routes of the Maori and Moriori extended. Bronze artifacts in Turkey. In the ruins of the ancient castle of Aya Ayanis, located in present-day Turkey, archaeologists have discovered bronze shields and a helmet that are about 2,700 years old. These artifacts, found under a 20-meter layer of debris, were created during the time of the Urartian kingdom and were probably used for ceremonial purposes to honor the god Kaldi, the protector in war. The castle of Aya Ayanis was built as a fortress and royal residence during the reign of King Rusa II in the 7th century BC. However, it stood for only about 20 to 25 years before it was destroyed by an earthquake. Recently discovered bronze shields and a helmet were found in the ceremonial hall of the castle. The decorations on the helmet and the intricate patterns on the shields confirm that they were used in religious rituals. Previously, other bronze items were found at this site, many of which were dedicated to Kaldi, the chief god of the Urartians, who was believed to protect them during battles. Despite minor damage, the artifacts are well preserved and restoration will help fully recover them. The Ayanis fortress continues to be the richest source of bronze artifacts from the Urartian era in Turkey, and each discovery provides more information about the culture of this ancient kingdom. A very fragile world. On August 14, 2003 at 4 p.m. in the state of Ohio, a wire touched a tree branch that should have been trimmed long ago. The automatic protection system was supposed to respond instantly, but it failed because of a bug in the software. And over the next 8 seconds, 38 power plants shut down, leaving 55 million people without electricity in 8 U.S. states and 2 Canadian provinces. Modern civilization relies on a system where the power grid supplies pumping stations, which move water to cool nuclear reactors that then generate electricity for the grid. And all of this is controlled through the internet, which runs on servers that are also powered by electricity. And when one part of this chain fails, the load instantly jumps to the neighboring ones. Those become overloaded and also start to fail. And in 2003, this wave of outages swept through 8 states in 8 seconds. Since then, this interconnection has only grown stronger. In 2021, one engineer changed a single parameter in the settings of an internet router, and Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram disappeared for 2 billion users for 6 hours. Not because of hackers or an attack, just a single line of code with a mistake. In the same year, hackers got into the control system of a water treatment plant in Florida and started increasing the level of lye in the drinking water to deadly levels. The operator noticed it by chance just as they glanced at the screen. The main paradox is that as the infrastructure gets smarter and more precise, it becomes more fragile. The power grids of the 1950s were inefficient and wasteful, but at least they didn't go down completely because of a single untrimmed branch, because they were simple and had a lot of extra non-optimal connections. Modern systems are optimized down to the last millimeter. Everything unnecessary has been removed from them, and that's exactly why they no longer have any safety margin. Like a rope from which extra strands have been removed to save weight. It's thinner, but it breaks faster. And no one knows exactly where in this huge network the next breaking point is right now. It exists, it just hasn't triggered yet. Here's another telling example. In May 2021, hackers attacked Colonial Pipeline, the company that pumps gasoline through pipelines across half of the eastern states of the U.S. A few hours after the attack, the company itself shut down the entire pipeline to prevent the virus from spreading further. Gasoline disappeared from gas stations in 6 states. People lined up and bought fuel in any container they could find. In some cities, gas stations stood empty for 5 days. All this happened because of a single successful hacker attack on one company. This isn't a theory about a distant future. This is 2021, and this occurred in the world's most advanced country. If you think that systems have become better protected since then, in 2023 there were 3 times as many similar attacks on infrastructure as in 2021. An underground oasis in Iran. In the arid landscapes of Iran, there is a hidden ancient underground city called Nushabad, also known as Bui. This impressive 3-story underground complex dates back to the times of the Sassanid Empire. The city was carved into the ground to protect against invasions and to provide a reliable shelter from the harsh climatic conditions of the region. Nushabad features a complex ventilation system, water wells, various chambers for living and storage, as well as a labyrinth of interwoven tunnels that help to mislead potential intruders. During the scorching summer months, the residents of Nushabad use the 1,000-year-old sections of the city for storage and shelter. Ancient inscriptions of pharaohs in the Nile. Archaeologist divers at the bottom of the murky waters of the Nile in Egypt explored algae-covered rock formations. At first glance, the stones seemed unremarkable, but upon closer inspection, scientists discovered several inscriptions related to ancient pharaohs. A joint team of Egyptian and French archaeologists decided to explore the ruins of the mill in Aswan. Under a layer of algae, they found several carved images that are at least 2,300 years old. The images range from drawings of ancient Egyptian pharaohs to hieroglyphs. In the photo, you can see several well-preserved carved figures. The shapes are blurred by water and are quite difficult to distinguish. One set of inscriptions looks like a row of mannequin heads above 2 objects resembling tombstones. These ancient inscriptions are still being studied. Archaeologists believe that these findings may help us better understand how ancient kings ruled in those distant times. The tomb of Philip II of Macedon, discovered in Vergina in northern Greece in the late 1970s, the tomb of Philip II of Macedon became one of the most significant archaeological finds in the history of ancient Macedonia. These tombs, located near the necropolis of the ancient capital of Macedonia, Ig, are believed to be the final resting place of Philip II, the king of Macedonia and the father of the great conqueror, Alexander the Great. The tomb is distinguished by its magnificence and the wealth of buried artifacts. Archaeologists found weapons, armor, gold, and silver items in it, including unique precious ossuaries, vessels for storing cremated remains. One of the ossuaries, decorated with a golden wreath of oak leaves and acorns, contained bones believed to belong to Philip II himself. This discovery not only confirmed ancient descriptions of the grandeur of the Macedonian kings, but also became a source of new knowledge about the cultural and burial rituals of the elite of that time. The armor and weapons found next to the remains indicate the important role of warfare in the life of Philip II, who not only strengthened Macedonia, but also paved the way for the future conquests of his son Alexander the Great. No one left to eat the corpses. Now the Zoroastrian Tower of Silence on Malabar Hill, a sacred place for the Parsi community, is under threat due to the declining vulture population in the area. These birds play a key role in the ritual of Daminashi, exposing the bodies of the deceased so they can return to nature. However, the decline in scavenger numbers in Mumbai, which began in 2015, has put this ancient tradition at risk. The Tower of Silence, or Dhamma, which is over 300 years old, is a circular structure symbolizing eternity in the Zoroastrian faith. It is located on a 22-hectare forested area. The outer circle of the tower is designated for men, the middle for women, and the inner for children. Before placing the body in the Dhamma, relatives pray in special structures called bungli, and then the remains are carried to the Kandi by special attendants. According to Zoroastrian traditions, contact with a dead body is considered defilement, and vultures play an important role in ensuring cleanliness and maintaining the natural balance. But urbanization, changes in habitat, and environmental problems have led to a sharp decline in the number of these birds. The decomposition process of bodies has slowed down, which has created difficulties in performing the ritual. Stone sarcophagus. In Italy, archaeologists have discovered an untouched sarcophagus that is 2,500 years old, which had remained hidden underground near the volcanic Lake Bolsena. During the excavation of the ancient Etruscan settlement of Bisenzio on the shore of the lake, several graves were found, dating from between 700 and 500 BC. To the scientists' surprise, none of the burials had been looted, which is rare for such an ancient site. Of particular interest was a simple stone sarcophagus that had preserved its contents in their original state. With the help of an excavator, the archaeologists lifted the heavy lid and discovered an almost completely preserved skeleton inside. Next to the remains was a small clay vessel, which, according to experts, could symbolize personal belongings or an offering to the deceased. The find is unique and gives researchers a rare opportunity to study the remains of an ancient Etruscan. Scientists hope that further analysis of the skeleton will provide valuable information about the life and culture of this people. An engineering marvel in Egypt. Once again, ancient Egypt continues to amaze modern researchers. This time, an astonishing tunnel was discovered beneath a temple in the ancient city of Toposiris Magna, which experts call a geometric marvel. The tunnel was found at a depth of 13 meters. Its length is 1,305 meters, and its height is about 2 meters. It is carved into sandstone and resembles in design the famous Eupalinian tunnel on the Greek island of Samos, which is considered an engineering marvel. The exact name of the tunnel is still unknown, but some of its sections are flooded with water. Archaeologist Martinez, who has been searching for the lost tomb of Cleopatra VII since 2004, believes that the tunnel could lead to important discoveries. Toposiris Magna was founded around 280 BC by Ptolemy, to one of Cleopatra's ancestors. Archaeologists believe that the temple was dedicated to Osiris and Isis, deities with whom Cleopatra was closely associated. The team also plans to explore the Mediterranean Sea, as a series of earthquakes between 320 and 1303 caused part of the temple to collapse into the water. Earlier, I mentioned tunnels found linking Lake Mariot to the Mediterranean Sea. Also, the Sunken Garden in Australia. In the city of Mount Gambier, South Australia, there is the magical Umferston Sinkhole, also known as the Sunken Garden. Created in 1986 by James Umferston, it was intended as a reimagining of the huge limestone cave into a picturesque Victorian-era garden. Descending the stairs from ground level, visitors can explore this stunning underground oasis filled with terraced gardens, ferns, hydrangeas, and even hanging ivy draping from the cave ceiling. One of the unique features of the Umferston Sinkhole is the colony of possums that live here. At night, these nocturnal creatures come out to feed on fruit left by visitors. Watching the possums adds a special charm and allows you to get closer to Australia's wildlife. As you know, the Umfriston sinkhole is not only a unique natural formation, but also an embodiment of the amazing interaction between humans and nature. The creation of this garden demonstrates how human intervention can transform a natural space into a place of beauty and tranquility. Excavations of an ancient civilization located near the northern coastal city of Trujillo in Peru, the ancient city of Chan, offers a unique opportunity to glimpse into the fascinating world of an ancient civilization, Chimu being one of the most extensive pre-Hispanic cities in South America. Chan is famous for its complex system of underground canals, tunnels, and spaces, which provided efficient management of water and other resources during the city's peak. The secret underground infrastructure of the city also served as a refuge during severe weather conditions and possible invasions by aggressors. Today, visitors can explore the archaeological complex of Chan to uncover its unique history, which includes both above-ground and underground remains of the complex social structure of the Chimu civilization. As is known, Chan is not only an archaeological monument, but also a testament to the highly developed Chimu civilization. These structures demonstrate the advanced technologies and skills of ancient people in the fields of architecture and resource management. Where did the bees go? In 2006, American beekeepers began to find empty hives, not dead bees, but specifically empty hives. The bees vanished without a trace. No bodies, nothing left behind. The hive still has honey, larvae, and a queen, but no worker bees. It's as if they left one morning and never returned. In just one season, between 25 and 40% of all bee colonies in the U.S. disappeared. Scientists called this colony collapse and admitted that they did not understand the cause. Almost 20 years have passed since then, and the situation with bees has not improved. Every winter, American beekeepers lose an average of 30 to 40% of their hives. The numbers are similar in Europe. In some regions of China, bees have disappeared on such a massive scale that farmers pollinate fruit trees by hand, using small brushes, flower by flower. This is happening right now, not in theory. Why is this important? 1/3 of all the food humans eat depends on pollination by insects. Apples, almonds, avocados, cucumbers, strawberries, coffee, sunflowers. All of these require pollinators. Almonds in California, used worldwide in chocolate and milk, are almost entirely pollinated by bees. Each spring, about 2 million bee colonies are brought in from across the country since local bees are no longer sufficient. There are several reasons, and scientists argue about which one is the main cause. Pesticides, which don't act immediately but accumulate over time. The varroa mite, which parasitizes bees and weakens their immune system. The loss of plant diversity. Bees that used to feed on hundreds of types of flowers now see monoculture fields of a single species around them. And viruses. Climate change and viruses are changing when flowers bloom, causing bees to wake up at different times than the flowers. These factors likely work together. The strangest thing about this story is that bees have existed for about 100 million years. They survived the asteroid impact that killed the dinosaurs. They survived all the ice ages. But in the last 20 years, their population in different countries has declined so much that people have started pollinating plants by hand. This is the first time in history that humanity has seriously thought about how to replace an insect. And so far, there is no answer. There's something else. Wild bees, not the ones kept in apiaries, but wild ones that live in burrows and crevices, are suffering even more than domestic bees. It's just that no one counts them as carefully. And it's exactly these bees that pollinate wild plants, which sustain ecosystems. When wild plants disappear, the animals that feed on them disappear too. When these animals disappear, the next link in the chain collapses. We're used to thinking of ecology as something distant and abstract. But in reality, it depends on specific little creatures that fly between flowers every day. Take them away, and in a few years, store shelves will start to look completely different. There are several million species of creatures living on this planet, and only one of them knows about what we discussed today. Only one can analyze data from rocks, understand what's happening with the magnetic field, count bees, measure ocean current temperatures, and draw conclusions from all of this. No other species knows what threatens it. They just live as long as they can. We know. This is either our greatest advantage or the heaviest responsibility in the history of life on this planet. Most likely, it's both at the same time. Subscribe to the channel. Every week, something comes out here that makes you look at familiar things in a completely different way. And write in the comments which threat from this video scared you the most. Thank you for watching. Bye, everyone.